Hello and welcome to our bi-weekly Subspace Labs DevSync. I actually think at this point it's been 3 weeks since our last, so we've been kind of heads down working. Singular focus right now has been the next step in our uh, march to mainnet, which is the launch of Gemini 3G, the next phase in our incentivized testnet. We are planning on that launch happening this week. We'll have some more deeper discussion about that coming from some of the team members here in a minute. But that's been the big focus here at Subspace, and kind of took a week off from the call to stay focused on that last week. So with that, Nazar, do you mind talking about kind of what's coming with Gemini 3G?
Of course. I think I'll start high level. On the very high level, there are two big things to talk about. The first thing is plotting complexity. We have changed K value for internal component that is shared proof of space. Essentially, it means that the computation part is about 8x heavier and more memory intensive than it was. That is like a component of plotting process, but it impacts the plotting process overall quite heavily. So that's the first change for security reasons. The other change is we have timekeepers in the next version of the protocol. Timekeeper is a separate role on the network that essentially proves that a certain amount of physical time has passed in real world. For that, we are benchmarking the fastest hardware we can find, and we set a certain number of iterations of AES 128 to correspond to 1 second of real world clock time. And we need these timekeepers to be present on the network because if no timekeeper is present, no one generates proof of time and no farmer can actually produce blocks. So they're kind of linked, inherently linked together. So for that reason, we will have a timekeeper, several timekeepers actually from like our team running, but we also expect that some community members will also run timekeepers for decentralization and reliability point of kind of view. Ideally, you would run something like 14900K overclocked. That will be matching or exceeding the timekeeper we are running. Otherwise, you'll be like an insurance. Like if you have a weaker computer, you can still run timekeeper. It will only occupy 1 core. It will not use more than that. But it will be acting as an insurance if like we are upgrading our nodes or do something to them, like or they crash or internet flickers or whatever. We need many timekeepers on the network running such that the network as a whole still moves forward and maintains security. So that's like high level. On lower level, I'd like to remind that Subspace is not Chia. You don't need 64 cores and terabyte of memory to be a successful farmer. That's not the case at all. That's kind of against the goal that we have. So you should be good with the modest hardware, like quad core machine. We are targeting at the lower end, like modern quad core machine, just desktop computer. I'd like you to also, like, if someone is watching and was farming on Gemini 3F, I'd like you to unlearn workarounds that you found for 3F, because we have changed a few things. We have modified the meaning of some of the CLI arguments on the farmer side. We also changed some defaults. The algorithms have changed. So just try to go with official instructions first. And then if you encounter something, you can try to tweak parameters and discuss on the forum or Discord. Some of the things that has changed, there is a change in default behavior of the farmer. So previously we had kind of 3 things sort of competing with each other when you start a farmer. There is a caching mechanism which ensures that the data of the network is available very quickly, instead of going to archival history, which is kind of like cold storage. That was running from the beginning when you start the farmer. The second thing obviously is farming, right? If you plotted something, it would try to farm with that space. The third thing is plotting, especially initially when you start or if you have to replot. Those 3 things were kind of competing with each other. There are different kinds of competition. So with caching and plotting, they both compete for the network resources, right? They want to retrieve pieces. And plotting and farming, they are competing for the disk resources because they want to access disk at the same time. And if you win the slot, then you have to prove and they're competing for the CPU resources. So the default behavior of the farmer has changed in the sense that it will first try to populate the cache. With a small network, it is very likely that you will hit local cache first. So then your plotting speed will be faster. So just leave it caching. It will print the progress in percentage along the way. When it's finished, it will start plotting. While it's plotting, by default, it will not farm. The reason for that is that A, you will not successfully farm because plotting will take a lot of CPU resources. B, your plotting will be slower due to farming. So like overall, you're worse off if you are doing both at the same time. But if you want to farm and plot at the same time, it's totally possible. There is a CLI argument that allows you to override that behavior if you prefer. So it will populate the cache first, then it will plot the whole thing. Replotting is not part of that, like it will replot concurrently with the farming. So it will create initial plot and then it will only start farming. So you will see that farming only starts way later. That is the reason why. And the idea is that you will plot as fast as possible, start to end, and then you will get the maximum of your rewards. Otherwise, you're just spending a lot of CPU resources, just wasting them, because there is very high probability you will not be able to audit or like to prove what you farmed in time. So you will be just throwing away results while still impacting your plotting. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. In addition to that, there are many like small tweaks, small optimizations. We have changed the protocol itself a little bit to make the auditing more performant, especially on Windows. There were like broken and not broken versions. Non-broken worked faster than the broken one. Broken were like super slow. The latest version uses as little memory as non-broken as broken, but it is faster than non-broken. So like they can kind of get the best of both worlds. So I hope the experience overall will be much better for our farmers in this network. But we are always open to feedback from the community, wherever it is, and we are committed to making more improvements and to make. We have seen that there are some farming tools already for Subspace. We are committed to make them kind of irrelevant, so you can plot and farm on your machine yourself and still get rewards.
Great. That was a lot, Nazar. There's been a lot going on. I do have a question, or I just wanted to clarify. You mentioned that with k equals 20, plotting is performance of plotting is much slower. What should we expect in like multiples slower time-wise?
Yeah. I would say somewhere between 4 and 8x, somewhere in between, because the sheer proof of space part is not the only thing that happens during plotting, and we have optimized even those things a little bit. I believe on my machine it takes about 2.5 minutes per one sector, and my machine is 3900K at 5.5 gigahertz, just like current multi-core enhancement in BIOS, and that's the overclock you get. So that's kind of your estimate. If you have slower processor, it will be proportionally slower. If you have a faster processor or way faster memory, it will be much better. I have DDR4 memory, so it is a little bit slower than it could be. So that is kind of the estimate. So like on my machine, it should take about 2 days to plot a terabyte. On bigger machines, it should be possible to do faster. That is kind of the target we have right now.
And so you would so to put that into perspective, relative to 3F, it'd be 4x to 8x slower than what you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. At the same time, one thing I didn't mention that it is related to proof of time, you also will spend more time to actually prove that you won a sector, won a challenge for the slot, but you also have a prediction window of 4 seconds. So you actually have more time to produce a solution than you had before. So you have a little bit more time to actually read, and then you also have way more time to actually prove that you won. So in that sense, it should kind of be the same in terms of the farming process. Yeah.
Great. All right. Jim, with the launch of 3G, we have the long-awaited stake wars approaching rapidly. Do you want to kind of give us an update on where we are with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Stake Wars. Very exciting, hopefully, for everyone watching on YouTube. So first of all, I'd like to draw attention to the forum post that we put out last week. It has the details that we can release at the moment of Stake Wars. Really, pretty much everything's there. The finer details will be fleshing out as we go along. But as Jeremy has said, we're planning to release 3G early this week. Which is wonderful because that actually starts the clock ticking on our Stake Wars timeline, which is published in that forum post. The timeline may well be fluid. We have to ensure that all the parts that make up Stake Wars, or sorry, that allow us to run Stake Wars, are working as we expect them to do. So yeah, if you haven't checked out that forum post, try and find it. We also tweeted it out today as well, so you'll see it in our recent tweets on X. So I just wanted to do a very quick rundown of the phases that we've got planned for Stake Wars, just to introduce them to anyone who's not aware of them. We've got 5 phases. We start at 0, of course, phase 0 orbit, which is the release of Gemini 3G, planned for the first half of this week. Rewards are going to be disabled, so it's not possible to start earning stake, but it is possible to start plotting sectors, so you can hit the ground running when we do enable rewards. Then we've got phase 1, Planetfall. We migrate incentivized testnet rewards from 3F to 3G. So at this point, there's a real pull for people to move over to 3G. If you haven't already, maybe you want to run on one or the other or both. And we're going to enable the TSSC rewards on 3G as well. We're going to run the enable rewards function, which means that you're going to be able to start collecting your stake for Stake Wars in phase 1. Very important. We've currently got that planned for Thursday. An announcement about the community call should be out by the time you're watching this video. Then phase 2, which we're calling base building, follows that. This is where we invite the community to come in and become operators on our EVM domain, which we call Nova. And this is the start of Stake Wars proper. This is where people can start executing transactions on the network, start earning transaction fees. That's currently planned for around the 15th of November, around the middle of the month. Again, we may adjust that depending on the state of the network as we go along. We're going to assess things as we progress. Phase 3 then comes in, which we're calling harvesting resources. Nominators are invited to add their stake to operator stake. Represents the start of the competition for nominators. And of course, I just want to mention that there is a separate reward pool for Stake Wars of 0.6% of total supply. The way that you'll earn that is the same. It will basically work the same way as mainnet. So the idea is that you're capturing transaction fees either as an operator or as a nominator to an operator that's earning transaction fees. That phase 3 for nominators is currently planned for the last week of November. Again, it could be fluid, our timeline here. Finally, phase 4, which is endgame, the end of the contest, currently planned for sometime around the Christmas holidays. And what we're going to do is we're going to announce an end block, which will mark the end of being able to earn Stake Wars rewards. Incentivized testnet continues throughout. The regular incentivized testnet for farmers continues throughout the whole of Stake Wars. And after endgame, our plan currently is to leave the network running so people can experiment a little bit with the pressure off. And as I mentioned, it's very important that there's no kind of perception that operators or farmers are more important than one or the other. Farmers are super important. They run our consensus network, without which the operators won't get the transactions that they need to execute ordered. So yeah, the incentivized testnet continues throughout the competition. Please do read the forum post. There's some really interesting and insightful notes at the bottom of the post that I haven't touched on here. Also, keep an eye out on Discord announcements and our other socials to keep up to date on what's going on. As I mentioned, Thursday, we're planning a community call to kick Stake Wars off. And finally, just speaking to, just to change gear actually, away from Stake Wars, we're planning on releasing some timekeeper docs soon. Could be today, could be tomorrow. And we will be asking community members with strong hardware to help us secure the network by running timekeepers. Yeah, any questions, come and find me in Discord. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jim. That was a lot. I think everybody is looking forward to getting Stake Wars launched. It's been a long time in the planning. A lot of work has gone into that, Jim and team and the software team. And yeah, looking forward to that coming soon. Speaking of a lot of work going into something, Daria has been hard at work on the Subnomicon for quite a while now. It's been being talked about and getting worked on in the background, and this is shipping. So Daria, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, it does really feel good to finally ship a multi-months effort. It also pulled the effort of what else documentation that we have written to date, and this now release of the Subnomicon is, I think, our biggest to date public reveal of like knowledge about Subspace network in an approachable language. So it's public. You can go and find it at subnomicon.subspace.network. We will be linking to it from like the website and the other resources going forward as well. Jim has already started putting in the Easter eggs in his forum posts linking to the Subnomicon. So Subnomicon is like the encyclopedia of knowledge about the Subspace protocol. It describes the architecture, describes the networking. It describes not just the how we're achieving things like in consensus and else, but also the why of certain decisions were made. Why are we having the separate role of farmers and operators? Why are we having the timekeepers? What are they supposed to do? The whole description of how the data goes on the network from a transaction to the way it's being stored in the storage, what's plotting, what's farming, what's the coupled execution, what are the advancements in the research that we have done to actually achieve all of this, how staking works, what are the nominator pools, what is the mass behind all of this. And yeah, there's a lot to read. There's more than 24 pages, and it will be filled out as we go, as people ask questions, as we might realize that maybe some more information that is missing, as we add updates to the protocol as well. They'll all be reflected in the Subnomicon. And one important thing to note is that the Subnomicon does not represent our desired and designed final stage of the Subspace network. It is supposed to represent the current state of what it is. It's supposed to be true to whatever is the current state of the network. However, I will be writing more pages for that, for our scalability designs going forward, for the governance designs. There's still a few pages that are missing, but you're welcome to go read it for the information.
Amazing. All right, I expect everybody that's on this call and then everybody from YouTube to be hitting subnomicon.subspace.network soon. It's actually a quite pleasant read if you're curious about how Subspace works. So.
And it's also full of amazing diagrams that have been done by our designer, Agatha. They're so pretty.
So this is a new development because I haven't seen the diagrams, I believe. So I'll be going to the site to check that out today. That's great. All right. Well, that was our agenda for today. Is there anything anybody wants to add before we sign off? All right. Well, thank you for watching.